I never thought I would find myself here, writing this out like some sort of cautionary tale. My name is Jake, and this is my story about the unraveling of my marriage to Lisa, whom I once thought was the love of my life. We had been married for 5 years, and like most couples, we had our ups and downs. But all relationships have their challenges, right? I just didn't expect the challenge to be infidelity. It started subtly. We were busy with work, life, and the mundanity of everyday existence. Lisa had that job at the marketing firm that kept her late more often than not. I was busy with my own career as a software developer. We had our routines, and honestly, I let my guard down. I thought she was just stressed from work, and I didn't think much of it when she stopped initiating our usual movie nights. Instead, I found myself binge-watching shows alone, believing it was just a phase. But then there were the little things. The late-night texts she would hastily hide when I walked into the room, the sudden need for privacy with her phone, and the way she started to dress up more when she went out, even for errands. I brushed it off at first. Maybe she was just trying to feel good about herself, right? Wrong. My gut was telling me something was off, but I didn't listen until it was too late. The tipping point came one night when I woke up at 4 a.m. to the sound of whispering. I squinted at the clock and thought maybe I was dreaming. The kitchen light was on. I got up, rubbing the sleep from my eyes, and headed towards the sound. To my disbelief, Lisa wasn't in bed. When I peeked around the corner, I saw her standing there, phone in hand, whispering to someone. I felt a cold rush of dread wash over me. But as I got closer, she suddenly turned off the light and slipped her phone into her pocket, saying she was just getting a glass of water. I played it cool, pretending I was still half asleep, but inside I was raging. I confronted her about it the next morning, and Lisa's response was a mix of irritation and dismissal. "I was asleep, Jake. You're imagining things," she snapped, rolling her eyes at. I let it slide that time, thinking maybe it was just a misunderstanding, but the seed of distrust had been planted and I couldn't shake it off. I began to snoop, yes, I admit it. I looked through her phone while she was in the shower. I found nothing incriminating, but her constant need for privacy and the way she acted made me uneasy. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe I was being paranoid, or maybe my instincts were right. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing more signs. I found a receipt for a fancy restaurant I knew she had not taken me to. She claimed it was a work dinner, but something didn't sit right. Then one day, I caught her in a lie about a weekend trip with friends. I had dropped her off at the airport, and instead of going to visit her friends, I found out later she had spent the weekend at some cabin with a coworker, a guy named Mark. That's when I decided I had to confront her directly. I remember the day vividly. I was a bundle of nerves, my heart pounding like a drum. I knew the truth, and I needed to hear it from her mouth. As she walked through the door, I could tell she felt something was off. The casual "hey" was laced with hesitation. I wasted no time, asking her point-blank about Mark, the restaurant, everything. Her face paled, and I watched as she scrambled for excuses. She claimed it was harmless, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was overreacting. The usual manipulation tactics came into play. She started crying, accusing me of being paranoid and jealous. But I could see the guilt in her eyes. The truth was there, just beneath the surface. The more she talked, the more my anger boiled over. I felt like I was living in a nightmare, my reality being twisted into something unrecognizable. I had trusted her completely, and here she was, standing in front of me, weaving a web of lies. I was heartbroken, betrayed, and furious all at once. I couldn't believe the woman I loved was capable of this. As she continued to deny everything, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. The emotional impact of this entire situation was staggering. It was like being hit by a freight train. I was hurt and angry, but beneath that anger, there was also a sense of disbelief. How had I missed the signs? How had I let it get this far? That day marked the beginning of my emotional journey, one that I never anticipated. I felt like I had been living in a fog, and now the reality had come crashing down. I would have to make a decision on how to move forward, but first, I had to grapple with the emotional fallout of her betrayal. This was just the beginning, and I knew I had a long road ahead of me. The confrontation with Lisa left me reeling. It was hard to process the betrayal while still caught in the whirlwind of emotions. Anger surged through me like fire, but underneath that burning frustration, I felt a deep sadness creeping in. I had trusted her implicitly, and the realization that she had broken that trust was like a punch to the gut. For days, I walked around in a haze. I couldn't focus on work, and my mind was a jumbled mess of what-ifs and whys. Lisa seemed to sense that something was off, but she played it cool. She was still trying to convince me there was nothing going on. She would offer me those false reassurances, saying things like, "You know I love you, Jake. I would never cheat on you," as if those words alone could wash away the hurt she had inflicted. But I wasn't buying it anymore. The whispers I had overheard, the lies she had told, they all swirled in my mind, replaying like a broken record. I started becoming more observant, watching her every move, and it sickened me to realize how much I had overlooked in our relationship. I was hyper-aware of her phone, her late-night work calls, and the suspicious messages that she always seemed to dodge when I was nearby. It was like living with a ghost, and I was the fool who didn't realize I was being haunted. I decided I needed more concrete proof. I began to conduct my own investigation. I would come home earlier than usual to catch her in a routine she couldn't manipulate. The tension was palpable. I could feel her anxieties creeping in. She became more guarded with her phone and more defensive in her responses. Then came the fateful day that would change everything. I had managed to get my hands on her phone when she stepped out to take a call. It felt like I was committing a crime, but it was a necessary evil in the name of self-preservation. As I scrolled through her messages, my heart raced. There it was, the smoking gun. Texts between Lisa and Mark, filled with flirtation and innuendo, laid bare before my eyes. She referred to him as my favorite and suggested meeting up for private time. I felt like I had been hit by a sledgehammer. The air left my lungs as the reality of it hit me. The woman I loved was not only betraying me, but was doing so in a way that was so casual, so careless. I couldn't help but feel sick. I was standing there, clutching her phone while my world crumbled around me. The betrayal was no longer a theory. It was a harsh reality, and I had the proof right in front of me. I felt both empowered and devastated. I had the evidence, but what was I going to do with it? When Lisa returned, I remained calm on the outside, though. Inside, I was a storm of emotions. I confronted her with the messages, holding the phone like a trophy of my victory over deceit. Her face fell when she saw what I had found, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Jake, I can explain," she gasped, her voice rising in panic. She tried to reach for the phone, but I pulled it away. "Explain what? How you've been lying to me? How you've been seeing Mark behind my back?" I fired back, my voice steadier than I felt. She stammered, trying to come up with words to justify her actions, but nothing sounded sincere. "It was a mistake. We were just talking. It meant nothing," she insisted, but I could see the cracks in her facade. "Nothing? Is that why you've been sneaking around and lying to me? You think I'm that naive?" I shot back, feeling the anger bubbling over. The confrontation spiraled into a shouting match. She shifted from denial to anger, accusing me of invading her privacy and being paranoid. "You're crazy, Jake. You don't trust me," she yelled, and I couldn't believe the audacity she had. Left to play the victim in this situation. In that moment, I realized how twisted our dynamic had become. She was trying to flip the script, but I refused to let her. I stood my ground, determined not to let her manipulation pull me under. I was dealing with a woman who had broken my heart and shattered my trust, and she was trying to turn it back on me. As the argument reached its peak, I felt a wave of clarity wash over me. There was no point in continuing this. I had the proof, and I didn't need to listen to her excuses anymore. I knew what I had to do. The emotional turmoil of the past few weeks had reached its climax, and I had to reclaim my sense of self and dignity. I told her I needed space and that I couldn't stay in the house any longer. "I'll figure out what to do from here," I said with a finality that surprised me. I packed a few essentials and left, my heart heavy but resolute. I needed to think, to process everything I had learned. I felt like I was standing on a precipice, peering into the abyss where my relationship used to be. As I drove away, I felt a mix of fear and relief wash over me. The grass was greener on the other side of this wall that had been built between us, but at what cost? I knew I had to start prioritizing myself, even if it meant letting go of the woman I once loved. Finding my footing after leaving Lisa was a challenge. I drove aimlessly for a while, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. I eventually parked at a nearby coffee shop, an old haunt of mine. The familiar scent of roasted beans and pastries was a comfort, but today it felt foreign. I sat in a corner booth, nursing a black coffee, trying to wrap my head around the whirlwind of betrayal I had just experienced. I thought about all those moments we had shared, the plans we had made, and how they had all been tainted by her lies. Lisa had been my partner, my confidant, and now she felt like a stranger. It was hard to reconcile the woman I loved with the one who had shattered my trust so completely. I felt like I was living in a surreal nightmare and I didn't know how to wake up from it. As I sat there, I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my contacts. I had friends, but I didn't want to burden them with my problems just yet. I didn't want to be the guy who couldn't keep his marriage together, but I needed someone to talk to, someone who would listen without judgment. I hesitated for a moment before deciding to call Ben, my best friend since college. He had always been there for me, and if anyone would understand the depth of my hurt, it would be him. When he answered, I felt a wave of relief. I told him I needed to talk, and he immediately offered to meet me. We agreed to meet at a bar later that evening. Just having someone to confide in felt like a lifeline in the chaos of my emotions. After a long day of wrestling with my thoughts, I met Ben at the bar. He greeted me with his usual easy smile, but the moment he saw my face, that smile faltered. "What's going on, man? You look like you've seen a ghost," he said, concern etched on his features. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I had to say. As I recounted the events of the past few weeks, the whispers, the lies, the discovery of her affair, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness pour out of me. I could see the disbelief in Ben's eyes as I shared the details. He listened patiently, not interrupting but nodding along as I poured my heart out. When I finished, he took a sip of his beer, setting it down to look me square in the eye. "Jake, I'm so sorry, man, that's brutal. I can't believe she would do that to you," he said, his voice steady but filled with sympathy. "It feels like I've lost everything, Ben. I thought we had a good relationship. We had plans, dreams, and now it's all gone." My voice wavered as I spoke. He nodded, understanding the emotional toll this was taking on me. "You didn't lose everything. You lost her. But you still have yourself, and that counts for something," he said. "You need to figure out what you want moving forward. It's okay to be angry, to feel lost right now." His words resonated with me. I realized I hadn't thought about what I wanted. I had been so wrapped up in the hurt and betrayal that I hadn't considered my future. As we continued to talk, I felt a small flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe this was the moment for me to reclaim my life and my happiness, no matter what that looked like. I didn't have all the answers yet, but I knew I had to make a decision about my future. That night, I returned to my temporary apartment feeling a little lighter. Ben had suggested I take some time for myself to think things through, to rediscover what I wanted outside of my marriage. I thought about what that meant and how I could begin to rebuild my life. The next few days were filled with reflection. I started journaling, pouring my feelings onto the pages, trying to untangle the mess in my heart and mind. I had always been a logical person, and yet here I was, drowning in emotions I couldn't control. I reconsidered my relationship with Lisa, replaying moments in my mind. I thought about the good times, the laughter, and the love we had shared. But then I'd think of the betrayal, the lies. Every time I tried to remember the happy moments, they were tainted with her dishonesty. I decided to set some boundaries. I didn't want to jump back into a situation that could be more painful than it already was. I sent Lisa a message, letting her know I needed space and time to think. I told her I couldn't be in contact for a while, and that I needed to figure out what I wanted. I felt both empowered and terrified pressing send, but I knew it was necessary. In the following weeks, I focused on myself. I started exercising again, something I had neglected while caught up in the whirlwind of life with Lisa. I went hiking, took long walks, and reconnected with friends. I picked up hobbies I had set aside, like painting and playing guitar. I found solace in these activities, a way to cope with the emotional fallout of my marriage. As I began to heal, I found clarity. I realized that I was worth more than the way I had been treated. The world didn't end because Lisa had cheated on me. It opened up new possibilities for my future. It became clear that I needed to decide if I wanted to salvage our relationship or cut my losses and move on. The emotional impact of Lisa's betrayal had been overwhelming, but I was starting to rise from the ashes. I was ready to confront her again, this time not as a broken man, but as someone who had found his strength. I had learned to value myself and was no longer going to be a pawn in her game. I needed to face her again and figure out what this meant for us, if anything at all. After weeks of reflection and healing, I felt ready to confront Lisa again. I had spent enough time away from her to gather my thoughts and emotions, understanding the gravity of what had happened and recognizing my own worth. The last time we spoke, I had left with a heavy heart, but now I was determined to go in there with clarity and purpose. I decided to meet her at the coffee shop where we used to go on lazy Sunday mornings. The familiarity of the place was comforting, but I knew the conversation ahead wouldn't be easy. I arrived early, taking a seat at a table in the back, and ordered a coffee to steady my nerves. My heart raced as I waited, each tick of the clock amplifying my anxiety. When Lisa walked in, she looked different. Her eyes looked tired, possibly from sleepless nights, and her usual confidence seemed to have dimmed. I remembered the woman I had loved, the one who had once filled my life with joy, and felt a pang of sadness. But I quickly reminded myself why I was there. This wasn't about nostalgia, this was about reclaiming my power. "Jake," she said, her voice laced with uncertainty as she approached the table, "I wasn't sure if you'd actually come." There was a hint of vulnerability in her demeanor, and for a brief moment I almost felt sorry for her, but I shook that feeling off. I had to stay focused. "Thanks for meeting me, Lisa," I said, keeping my tone calm. "I've had time to think, and I want to be honest about where I stand." She nodded, her face a mixture of apprehension and anticipation. I could see that she was bracing herself for whatever was coming next. "I can't ignore what happened between us," I continued. "The affair, the lies, it shattered my trust in you. I need to know if you understand the weight of what you've done and if you're willing to take responsibility for it." Her eyes widened, and she opened her mouth to respond, but I held up my hand, not wanting to let her deflect from the conversation. "I don't want excuses right now, Lisa. I want to know if you're capable of being honest with yourself and with me." She exhaled, visibly shaken by my directness. "I know I messed up, Jake. I've been going through a lot of guilt. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was just caught up in the moment. I interrupted, feeling the anger building again. "You made a choice. You chose to betray my trust. You chose to lie to me, to sneak around behind my back. Those are decisions, not mistakes." The tension hung thick in the air as she tried to gather her thoughts. "I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't think about how it would hurt you. I was stupid, and I regret it deeply." I watched her face, looking for sincerity or signs of remorse. I needed to see if she was truly willing to own what she had done. "Do you think saying you're sorry is enough to fix what you broke?" I asked. "I need to understand if you're willing to do the work to rebuild this relationship, or if you're just saying what you think I want to hear." Lisa looked down, fidgeting with her hands. It was there, the hesitation, the uncertainty. I could tell she hadn't fully grasped the impact of her actions. "I want to fix this, Jake. I really do. It was a mistake, and I want a chance to show you I can be better," she pleaded. "Better?" I shot back, feeling the frustration bubbling to the surface. "You think you can just ask for another chance and everything will go back to normal? Trust doesn't just magically reappear, Lisa. It takes time, effort, and a willingness to be transparent." "I know it won't be easy," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I love you and I don't want to lose you. I can do better. I can show you I'm committed." Hearing her say she loved me felt like a double-edged sword. On one hand, I wanted to believe her, but on the other, I felt the sting of her betrayal. "Love isn't enough right now, Lisa. I need more than words. I need actions. I need to see genuine change, not just promises." She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. Please give me a chance to prove it." As I sat there, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I had come to this meeting with the intention of making a decision, and now I was faced with a dilemma. I remembered the good times we had shared, the laughter and love, but I also recalled the devastation of her betrayal. After a long pause, I took a deep breath, feeling the gravity of my next words. I need time, Lisa. I can't make a decision right now. I want to see if you're serious about making changes, but I can't promise anything. Her expression turned from desperation to relief. I'll do whatever it takes, Jake, I promise. I finished my coffee, a wave of mixed emotions washing over me. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. I felt like I had taken a step toward reclaiming my power, but I wasn't ready to fully open up again. As we parted ways, I felt a flicker of hope amidst my uncertainty. I knew healing and rebuilding trust wouldn't be easy, but I felt a sense of resolve. I had taken control of the situation, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I was moving forward, even if it was just one small step at a time. In the days that followed, I kept my distance from Lisa, allowing her the space to show me she was serious about change. It was hard to resist the urge to reach out, but I knew I needed to stick to my boundary. I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. She started posting on social media with a focus on personal growth and transparency. As I watched from afar, I felt a mix of emotions: hope, skepticism, and a hint of curiosity about what the future might hold. I was learning to put myself first, and for the first time in a long while, I felt empowered to make my own choices, regardless of what Lisa's would be. The path ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to navigate it with strength and clarity. The journey of healing was just beginning. Weeks passed, and the silence between Lisa and me grew more comfortable, albeit still tinged with tension. She was trying to show me that she could change, and I had to give her credit for that. She reached out occasionally, a simple text asking how I was doing, and I responded when I felt ready. I wasn't going to ignore her completely, but I also wasn't going to rush back into the relationship. I started attending a support group for people dealing with betrayal and infidelity. It was eye-opening to hear others share their stories. I realized I wasn't alone in this struggle. Many others had faced similar heartaches. The group provided a safe space to vent, to cry, and to heal. Each session helped me piece together my feelings and gain clarity on what I wanted for my future. During one particular session, I met a woman named Sarah. She had a similar story to mine. She had been cheated on by her husband, and she was working through her emotions with remarkable strength. We struck up a friendship, sharing insights and advice on how to reclaim our lives. Sarah became a sounding board for me, someone who understood the complexities of betrayal. As our bond grew, I appreciated having someone outside of my previous life to confide in. Meanwhile, Lisa was still making efforts to show her commitment. She sent me flowers one day with a heartfelt note expressing her love and a desire to make amends. I appreciated the gesture, but I didn't want to be swayed by grand gestures alone. I needed to see consistent change over time. One evening, I received a call from Ben. He had invited me over for dinner, saying he wanted to catch up. I agreed, looking forward to some normalcy amidst the turmoil. As I arrived at his house, I was greeted with the familiar warmth of friendship. We sat in his living room, beers in hand, and I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Talking about life outside of my troubles was refreshing. Have you talked to Lisa lately? Ben asked, his expression sincere. Yeah, a bit. She's trying to change, but I'm still cautious, I admitted. I don't want to get swept back into something without seeing real effort. That's smart, he replied, nodding. You deserve to be treated well, just remember to put yourself first. You're the priority here. His words resonated with me. I had spent so long putting Lisa's needs above my own, and now it was time to focus on what I wanted. I shared my experiences from the support group, and it felt good to express my feelings openly. Ben listened attentively, offering encouragement as I navigated the complexities of trust and forgiveness. After a few more beers, we decided to watch a movie. As we settled in, I couldn't shake the feeling of being torn. I wanted to believe in the possibility of reconciliation, but the fear of getting hurt again loomed large. As the evening progressed, I felt a slight shift within myself, a sense of empowerment, a realization that I was healing and growing stronger. That weekend, I decided to visit my family. I hadn't seen them in months, and I figured it would be a good distraction. My parents welcomed me with open arms, and it felt comforting to be surrounded by their love. Over dinner, I opened up about what I had been going through. They listened without judgment, their concern palpable. "Jake, we just want you to be happy," my mom said, reaching for my hand. "You deserve someone who values you and respects your heart." Hearing those words from her felt like a balm on my wounds. I realized that regardless of what happened with Lisa, I needed to prioritize my own happiness. My parents reminded me of my worth and the importance of loving myself first. As I drove back home, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I was no longer going to settle for less than I deserved. I was ready to face Lisa again, with an open heart but also with firm boundaries. If she wanted to rebuild our relationship, it would take genuine effort and accountability. I reached out to her the next day, suggesting we meet up for coffee. I wanted to have an honest conversation about where we stood. Lisa seemed eager, and we decided to meet at the same cafe where we had first confronted the issue. It felt fitting, a place where we had both faced our truths head-on. When I arrived, Lisa was already there, nervously tapping her fingers on the table. Her expression was a mix of hope and anxiety. She seemed to understand the gravity of this meeting. I took a seat across from her, and for a moment we both just stared at each other, processing the weight of everything that had happened. "Thank you for meeting me, Jake," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I've been thinking about what you said about needing time and space. I understand now how much I hurt you, and I want to take full responsibility for my actions." I nodded, appreciating her acknowledgement. "I want to hear you out, but I also need to be honest about how I'm feeling. I've been through a lot these past few months, and I'm still healing." "I know," Lisa replied, her eyes welling with tears. "I've been working on myself. I've been to therapy to understand why I made those choices. I never meant to hurt you, Jake. I was scared and lost. And I took it out on you." Her honesty struck a chord with me. I could see she was genuinely trying to change, but a part of me still remained skeptical. "I appreciate that you're taking steps to understand yourself, but I need to know if you're serious about making this work. It can't just be about you wanting me back. It has to be about rebuilding trust. I want to prove to you that I can be better. I want to do this right," she said, her voice earnest. "I'm willing to do the work, Jake. Just tell me what you need from me." I took a deep breath, feeling both hopeful and cautious. "I need transparency. I need to feel secure, and that means being open about your communication with Mark and anyone else. I can't be in a relationship where I feel like I'm constantly questioning your loyalty." "I understand," she replied, nodding vigorously. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. I don't want to lose you, Jake." As the conversation continued, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was clear Lisa was willing to put in the effort, but I also knew it wouldn't be an easy road. Trust would take time to rebuild, and I had to be patient with both her and myself. We left that cafe with a tentative agreement to start fresh, albeit with a lot of work ahead of us. I felt a mix of emotions: hope, caution, and a renewed sense of determination. This wasn't the end of our story. It was just a new chapter, one that would require both of us to be committed to healing and growth. As I walked away that day, I realized I had come a long way from the heartbroken man who had left our home weeks earlier. I was still on a journey of recovery, but now I was ready to face the future, no matter where it led me. The weeks that followed our conversation at the cafe were a whirlwind of emotions. Lisa and I began to navigate the delicate process of rebuilding our relationship. We established clear ground rules regarding communication, honesty, and boundaries. She agreed to keep her phone open and share her whereabouts with me, and in return, I promised to be more trusting and open about my own feelings as well. Every day felt like a new experiment in vulnerability. There were moments when insecurity crept in, and I found myself questioning whether I could truly trust her again. During those times, I would remind myself of the work we were both putting in. I was learning to communicate my feelings rather than bottling them up, and Lisa was learning to be more transparent and accountable for her actions. I started noticing subtle changes in her behavior that gave me hope. She was making an effort to include me in her life more, inviting me to join her for dinner with friends and introducing me to her coworkers. I could see that she was genuinely trying to create a sense of stability in our relationship. For every late-night text she received, she made it a point to share it with me, reassuring me that there was nothing to hide. But the hardest part was dealing with the emotional aftermath of betrayal. I still wrestled with feelings of anger, sadness, and confusion. I sometimes found myself wondering if I could ever fully forgive her or if the scars would always linger. To navigate these feelings, I continued attending my support group, where I found solace in sharing my struggles with others who understood my pain. One evening, Lisa surprised me with a picnic at a local park. She had prepared all my favorite foods and even brought a bottle of wine. As we sat on the blanket, the sun setting behind us, I felt a wash of nostalgia. I remembered the early days of our relationship, the joy and laughter that had initially drawn us together. "Thank you for this," I said, smiling as I took a bite of the pasta she had made. "It's really nice to just be here with you." "I've missed this," she replied, looking at me with sincerity. "I want to be the partner you deserve, Jake. I know I messed up, but I'm committed to making this work. I love you." Hearing her say those words filled me with warmth but also reminded me of the hurt she had caused. "I love you too, Lisa, but I need you to understand that it's going to take time for me to heal completely. I'm trying, but some days are harder than others." "I get it," she said softly. "I'll be patient and I'm here for you no matter what. We can take it one step at a time." As the weeks rolled into months, I watched our relationship evolve. We started to reclaim our connection, learning to communicate better and understand each other more deeply. Lisa continued to put in the effort to show she was committed to change, attending therapy sessions and being open about her feelings. I also found strength in my own healing journey. I focused on the things that brought me joy, rediscovering passions I had set aside during the tumultuous times of our marriage. I joined a local hiking group and started volunteering at a community center where I met new people and made new friends. I was rebuilding my identity outside of the relationship, a crucial step in my healing process. But there were still challenges. Occasionally, I would see a message pop up on Lisa's phone, and my heart would race. The instinct to feel threatened or insecure would rear its ugly head. During those moments, I learned to pause, take a deep breath, and remind myself of how far we had come. I would talk to her about my feelings instead of letting them fester. One evening, after a long day at work, we sat down together. I felt an overwhelming urge to share my thoughts. "I still struggle sometimes with the feelings of betrayal," I admitted. "There are days when I doubt everything." Lisa reached for my hand, her grip firm and reassuring. "That's okay, Jake. It's completely normal to feel that way after what happened. Just know that I'm here for you and I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together." That commitment gave me a sense of peace. I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our story, they didn't have to define us. We were learning to navigate our new normal, and every day we spent together felt like an opportunity for growth. Several months later, I decided to take a leap of faith. I planned a weekend getaway for us, a chance to reconnect and enjoy each other's company away from the routine of everyday life. The trip was a success, filled with laughter, long conversations, and a renewed sense of intimacy. As we watched the sunset together, I felt a lightness in my heart that had been missing for a long time. The journey of rebuilding our relationship was far from over, but I was embracing it with determination and hope. We had learned to communicate better, to be more honest with each other, and to prioritize our emotional well-being. I understood now that healing was a process, not a destination, and that it would require ongoing effort from both of us. Reflecting on everything I had been through, I realized that I had learned some valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. I had faced the darkness of betrayal and emerged stronger, ready to embrace whatever the future held. As I looked at Lisa, I felt grateful for the chance to rebuild our relationship. It might not be what it once was, but it was becoming something new, something that with time and effort could be even better. I knew that love could withstand even the greatest challenges, and I was finally ready to embrace that truth. In the end, it was not just about forgiving Lisa. It was about forgiving myself for allowing the betrayal to shake my sense of self. I was ready to move forward, not just in our relationship, but in my life, empowered by the strength I had found along the way. Whatever the future held, I was prepared to face it head-on, with an open heart and a renewed sense of purpose.